today.
Would you stay with your husband if he not only cheated, but fathered a child with the mistress?
How to handle an affair.
I would not incorporate that child into my family. The baby had nothing to do with it.
And a newscaster's sexual identity crisis.
I got honest about my addiction, and then I got honest about my sexual orientation.
If I really loved her, I would let her go.
You need to find out what the truth is.
Have a good show, everybody. Here we go.
I know things are tough out there, but we can do this. If it matters to you, that's what I want to talk about.
10 seconds to air.
Well, thank you. This is going to be a changing day in your life.
Ready, camera 5.
3, take track.
Go, Dr. Phil. Let's do it. Okay, now, all right, we got a lot to do today, but I got a question I got to ask you to begin with. How many of you women out there would forgive your man for having an affair? There weren't very many yeses in there. There was a very high-profile woman who gave her man a second chance when most women might have said, take a hike. I'm talking about Elizabeth Edwards forgiving her politician husband, John, after he cheated. Now, you probably remember when the story first broke. Take a look.
Tonight, former presidential candidate John Edwards admits to an affair that he had dismissed as tabloid trash just last month.
I have no idea what you're asking about. I've responded to consistently to these tabloid allegations by saying I don't respond to these lies.
Edwards just released this statement. In 2006, I made a serious error in judgment and conducted myself in a way that was disloyal to my family and to my core beliefs.
His wife, Elizabeth, released a statement. Admitting one's mistakes is a hard thing for anyone to do, and I am proud of the courage John showed by his honesty in the face of shame.
But the former presidential candidate says he is not the father of his mistress's child.
He admits he has not taken a paternity test.
He says he will undergo any tests that are necessary to prove that point.
All right, now, according to North Carolina news station WRAL, John Edwards is expected to admit that he's the father of Frances. Now, this situation raises many questions, especially since almost half of our country's marriages end in divorce. Sometimes it's because of affairs. So the question is, would you stay with your husband if he not only cheated, but fathered a child with the mistress? And then the question arises, would you introduce that child to your other kids? So that's thought-provoking, don't you think? Yes. Does it matter when there's a child involved? Would you stay?
Yes.
Why?
I think he needs to be forgiven. I wouldn't incorporate the child into my family, however. I think that would be his
Oh, you wouldn't introduce the child. Would y'all introduce the child? Yes. So you disagree?
That's right.
Stand up. What's your position?
My husband brought in a 9-month-old baby. He said, this is my son with the mistress.
Yeah.
So then what I did, the next day, I took off his clothing, put him outside, changed the locks, and said, you're out of here.
The baby or your husband?
The husband.
Okay. All right. Just want to be sure you didn't set the baby on the porch and change.
No, not the baby.
You put him out and changed the locks?
Correct.
Okay, but those of you that would stay, who said you would stay? Raise your hand. Everybody. If you would stay, that's everybody? Okay. I thought maybe you misunderstood the question. Okay, you would stay?
Of course.
And you would have a relationship with the baby?
Sure.
Really?
Yes.
Okay.
That's a new life.
Right.
And the baby had nothing to do with it. And you know, if I have cancer, thank you. If I have cancer and it's stressful, it's traumatic, my husband, he's a human being. I mean, who knows what? I mean, you're a dog. You know what people eat, people drink, people. I mean,
you lost me.
What? Oh, sorry. No, I mean, like, that's not the right way. People do what they need to do to feel good, right? Sometimes in the wrong way. They shouldn't do that. But the reality is, sometimes after I speak with my mother, I eat like a whole loaf of bread. And I know I shouldn't, but you know, you need something to feel good, because what, I'm gonna tell her off? I can't tell her off, right?
Yeah.
There's circumstances. Anyway, I'm just saying.
I've got a great book for you to read. It's a book entitled, If It's Not One Thing, It's Your Mother.
Yeah.
So maybe
that's
what
mother.
you should read. Okay, would you stay or go?
I would go.
To me, I think everybody's taken the fidelity thing just overboard. I mean, there's no excuse for an affair. If you want to be out of the relationship, get out. There's no excuse for it. None.
Okay.
None. There is none.
So if you want out, get out.
Yeah.
All right.
I mean, that's just wrong. I mean, you're hurting other people, and it's just not.
Well, you know, political affairs have become so prevalent that CBS is actually making a new TV show about it. It's a drama called The Good Wife. Take a look at this clip.
I want to be clear. I have never abused my office. I have never traded lighter sentences for financial or sexual favors. At the same time, I need to atone for my personal failings with my wife, Alicia, and our 2 children. The money used in these transactions was mine and mine alone. No public funds were ever utilized. But I do admit to a failure of judgment in my private dealings with these women. Alicia and I ask that the press please respect our privacy. Give us time to heal. With the love of God, the forgiveness of my family, I know I can rebuild their trust. I want to thank the good people of Chicago. It's been an honor to serve you, and I pray that one day I may serve you again. Thank you.
Sir, are you still involved with prostitutes, sir? How many workers?
You ever try to hold public office again?
So, I mean, what do you guys think about this? Should Elizabeth Edwards have stayed? I mean, if you think she should have stayed, raise your hand. Okay, if you think, no, she should have gone, raise your hand. Wow, that's almost everybody. So you think she could have gone. Well, all right, we're going to talk about this sort of thing. All right, when we come back, we're going to talk about another story. This is a story of a different nature. It's a very high-profile news anchor who has been keeping many secrets, and why she decided to talk about them now. She'll be here when we come back.
I'm Jane Mitchell, a graduate of New York University. Good evening. In the headlines tonight,
Jane Mitchell, Eyewitness News.
Well, the Pope is not coming here to New York.
And most important,
you've got to have the right to.
Celebrity justice correspondent Jane Velez Mitchell.
On to Jane Velez Mitchell in Santa Maria. What happened today?
Well, I think it was a pretty good day for prosecutors.
The fact is, the controversy was created by what Michael Jackson said. I am Jane Velez Mitchell. Brand new development, a shocking portrait. You are watching Issues on HLN.
Well, and that is just a glimpse of this television veteran's 20-year career. In front of the camera, she seemed to have it all together. She was professional, confident, poised, but in reality, her life was falling apart. As you know, she is Jane Velez Mitchell, host of HLN's Issues with Jane. And she is the author of a new book entitled I Want, where she reveals her struggles with alcohol, all types of addictions, and other issues. And let me tell you, I've read this book cover to cover, and I recommend this to all of you here and all of you at home. I think this is a real chronicle of courage and candor. I thought this took a lot of guts to write this honestly.
Well, they say you're only as sick as your secrets. Yeah. And I decided it was time to get honest.
Yeah. Well, and why? What was the thing that pushed you over the line?
I wrote a book called Secrets Can Be Murder, and I started to realize how fatal and how toxic secrets are. And then I started to look at myself, and I realized I had a lot of secrets, and that maybe by telling my story, I might be of service to somebody out there grappling with the same problems. I'm dealing with so many of the same issues that people across America are dealing with: alcoholism, consuming addiction, all of these different addictive behaviors that are really destroying our lives. And I just decided I'm going to tell my story, and maybe somebody out there can learn something so they don't have to go through some of the hell I went through.
And this started really early for you, right? Because, I mean, when I say I read the book, I've got it marked. Mm-hmm. And I'm talking about real early on page 13. You say, in my early years, my dad would ask me to run errands. Janie, run downstairs, will you, and get me a carton of Pall Malls and 2 quarts of Gordon's gin. This is back in the days when kids could pick stuff up that the Department of Child and Family Services would kill you for now. He had a running account. I would pick up a bottle or 2 of wine for myself. I was the only teenager that had my own wine closet.
Yep.
You started early. When did you start drinking?
I actually started even before that. My parents would have these big cocktail parties, and I would walk around and drink the ends of the drinks. They had these stems that would remain filled with gin or vodka, and I just drink them down, go around the room. And so I had a genetic predisposition to alcoholism because my dad was an alcoholic.
Right.
And he was a high-functioning, controlled alcoholic, but he was an alcoholic. So as soon as I got that opportunity to go down and fetch him alcohol, I'd pick up some Liebfrau milk and some Wild Irish Rose for myself, and I would down it, and I never had that phase of I hate the taste. I liked the taste from day one, and I was off to the races. I'm your classic lush, your garden variety alcoholic.
You say on page 56 that people would comment to you at a bar you went to that they had never seen you when you weren't drunk.
Yeah, and that was a wake-up call for me because when I was a teenager, getting drunk and getting wasted was a way to get popular, and it worked for me for a while, and they call it chasing the high. I was always chasing that first time when I finally had all the friends and we were hanging out together drinking Harvey Wallbangers, and I was smoking a Territon and listening to Maggie May, and then all of a sudden it stopped working. So there was a point where I really wanted to get sober, and that's when I realized I was not in control. I would tell myself, I'm not going to have a drink today. And my willpower, I've got pretty good willpower, never worked. I could never get a day without drinking. So I had a problem and I wanted to quit, but I didn't know how.
Well, Jane's boyfriend of more than a decade is a television producer who actually has worked here on the Dr. Phil show off and on over the years. His name is Stephen, and while he couldn't be here today, he gave us some insight into their relationship. So take a look at this.
When Jane would drink, her personality would absolutely transform to this sort of scary beast. Jane had gone to Washington, D.C. on a story, and when she came back, she said, I really got wasted one night, and we went to a nightclub. I don't remember a lot of it, but I met this other woman there, and actually I made out with her on the dance floor. Jane's reaction, I can't believe I did this. But what really concerned me is that she was drinking beyond what she should be doing.
Pretty true?
Yes, it's all true. And it's alcoholism. Your willpower doesn't work. You can say that you're not going to drink and you'll drink anyway. And the thing about alcoholism is that sometimes it makes you do incomprehensible things that you would never, ever consider doing sober. But sometimes it gives you that freedom to do something you secretly desire to do that you never have the guts to do sober, like making out with a woman when you're a woman.
Yeah, you actually did exactly that.
Yes.
One night on a dance floor.
Yes.
And then sometime later, while you were on a radio show in 2007, in the summer, you actually came out at that point and shared with the world your sexual orientation.
I did, and I call it a chain reaction of honesty. What happened was, first, Stephen helped me get sober. He said, basically, this is a deal breaker. You keep drinking, I'm going to break up with you. One night, there was a party. I hit bottom, basically. I made a fool of myself at a party. I woke up the next morning. I thought, he's left because he wasn't there. I went and called my friend who had just gotten sober, and I said, I'm turning myself in. I've hit bottom. Just destroyed a relationship that I care about very much. And he said, I'll pick you up in an hour. And I embarked on my journey to sobriety. Well, once I didn't have the alcohol there to self-medicate, suddenly all these other feelings started coming up. And essentially, I had to admit to myself that I'm gay. I had to admit it to myself. I had nowhere to run, nowhere to hide. I couldn't hide behind a bottle of Chardonnay anymore because that bottle wasn't there. So that's really the process. Honesty isn't an event, it's a process. And it was kind of a chain reaction of honesty. I got honest about my addiction, and then I got honest about my sexual orientation.
And, okay, I want to talk to you about both of those things, and we're going to take a break. We're going to come back, we're going to talk about what it would feel like to have your girlfriend leave you for another woman. Stephen is going to be on the phone. We're going to talk to him when we come back.
Jane and I love to go to a spa near Palm Springs. She would always request a male masseuse. Jane went to get her 90-minute massage, and suddenly she's back in about 20 minutes. She said, no, it's female, and it was horrible. I pretended I had a headache, and I just got out of there. It was like a big moment, red flag moment for me. I was like, Jane, you have to deal with this. You know, it reminded me of the Shakespearean line, doth protest too much. You're overreacting to something big here. She said, it's not what you think. And her actions would continue to be of an affectionate girlfriend. We were still having fun together. It was several months after I heard those famous words, we need to talk. She was very honest and upfront and said, I've met this woman and I want to go out with her. And my reaction was, go for it. I think that I had to come to this realization that if I really loved her, that I would let her go. I mean, it sounds like a cliche, but if you really love that person, you let them grow and you let them go.
What do you think about watching that?
Wow. Well, I was thinking that I wanted to love Stephen in a romantic way, like the movies, like Casablanca. And I do love Stephen, and I'll always love him. He's an amazing guy, and I want to thank him for giving me the freedom to be myself.
Well, thank him now. He's on the phone. Are you there, Steve?
I sure am, Dr. Phil.
How you doing, buddy?
Good. Hi, Jane.
Hey, Stephen. How are you?
Just hearing that clip does bring up a lot of memories.
It really does. We had a great time.
And Steve, you couldn't have been shocked when you got that message, hey, we need to talk, but you couldn't have been shocked because you saw this coming, right?
I totally did, Dr. Phil. I didn't want to. I was probably in denial because we were having such a great time. But absolutely, I was heartbroken. But absolutely, I was not shocked.
Yeah, because you joked on her first date. You said, you know, gee, I love her, except for the fact that she's an alcoholic and a lesbian.
I was hoping you weren't going to bring that up.
Hey, I bring everything up. You know that. Now, Jane's first girlfriend, Sandra, is here. There you are. Yeah. So, now, you guys are not still romantically involved, right?
No. No.
But you are still very good friends, and...
We're all good friends. Sandra and I are good friends, and the both of us are good friends with Stephen. And we all hang out together.
It was a great relationship. We had so much fun, and we were together for years, and I wouldn't change it. In fact, Jane influenced me to be sober. I'm about to celebrate my first birthday. So.
Let me ask you this, because you have been sober since 1995.
Yes.
So that's a long time.
14 and a half years.
Yeah, and congratulations on that.
Thank you.
And that was part of how you self-medicated, you say, to bury a lot of things and hide a lot of things. But yet you didn't come out with a clear declaration of your sexual orientation until 2007.
Yes.
So if you're using this to hide all of that, but then from 95 to 2007 is another 12 years that you continued to live this...
Well, what happened was that once I got sober, I then had to confront my sexual identity, which took some time. I was going to therapy. I was talking to my therapist about it. I finally admitted it to my therapist long before I met Sandra. Then, after our relationship took off, which was really amazing, and we had a great romance, then I had to come out first to my friends. Then I had to come out to my family. And so what I say about coming out, it's not an event, it's a process.
And here's the thing I want you to address for me, because there are so many people out there, young and into their 20s and 30s and 40s, that still are hiding that sexual orientation as a gay or a lesbian. And you are intelligent, you're educated, you're you're investigative, you are into all of this, and yet it took you a long time to get there, because you're not someone that's, living in the backwoods somewhere and still believes the myths about the gay and lesbian lifestyle being a choice. I mean, all of these things, but yet it took you so long. Why?
Denial is a powerful thing. Denial of alcoholism, denial of sexual orientation. The fact is that today kids have a lot more freedom of choice because the stigma is going away. Thank God. I hope, thank God, the stigma is going away.
This progress is being made.
Progress is being made. But back when I was a kid, even though I was a tomboy, even though I realized in retrospect I had a crush on a girl in high school, the drumbeat of heterosexuality is so strong that really society takes you off on a tide, and it's very hard for you to look at yourself and say, no, I'm going to march to a different drummer. And so that process of getting honest is a slow, long one. And again, if I hadn't gotten sober first, I would never have gotten to the point to be honest about my sexual orientation.
And Stephen had to be a help too in saying what he did.
Oh, he helped me get sober because he said your drinking's a deal breaker. So then he kind of created his own monster in a sense that once I got sober, I was like, well, hey, there's something else you have to know about me too.
Yeah, that kind of bit you in the butt, didn't it, Steve?
It really did. There's no doubt about it.
All right. Steve, thanks for weighing in. We've got to take a break. I hope you'll stick around because we're going to talk about this gay and lesbian issue and some moms that are confused about this, and in different ways. You'll find this very interesting, I think. Because next we're going to talk to a woman who says she knew she was a lesbian since the age of 13, but now find out why she's having second thoughts at the age of 40. More on that when we come back. Okay, Jane recently came out on a radio show, but Barbara says that she has known that she was a lesbian since she was 13 years old. Now, I've asked Jane to stick around for this next question because it isn't all just flipping a switch sometimes. At 39, Barbara decided to have a child using in vitro fertilization. Now, during her pregnancy, Barbara says she started to have sexual urges for men. Now, her baby is now 5 months old, and Barbara says she's just really confused about her sexuality at this point. True?
Yeah, true.
So this has got to be puzzling to you. Tell me what you're experiencing. What are you going through?
I don't know, listening to everything that's being said, and I'm actually more confused, and I don't know. I've never questioned this part of my identity before in my whole life, and I've gone through a lot of different issues and questioned a lot of different other things. So for this to be something that I'm questioning is a little troubling.
Is this something that is an image you have in your mind about, I now have a baby, so my maternal instincts are really strong, so I want the picket fence, the mom, the dad, the wagon to the, this is really a cute baby, the wagon to the park and all of that sort of thing. Is this a social concept for you? Is it coming from the inside out? How do you feel about that?
That's kind of what I'm wondering, because I want the best for her, and I know that even though I didn't have problems with it growing up, I did struggle with it on a level of socially with my family, friends, and stuff like that. And so I guess kind of I don't want her to start out with a strike against her in any way. So I guess that's what's attractive about it. The husband, like you said, the husband, the white picket fence, and that's why I'm confused. I'm wondering if it has more to do with what I want for her, or maybe a midlife crisis. I don't really know. Like I said, I've never questioned it before. So
well, let me say two things to you about this, and then I want someone else to weigh in on this. First off, if your mind and heart is telling you that you want to experiment or open a new option to yourself, there's certainly no downside to that as long as you're responsible in all the ways that you do it and who you meet and how and where and what your standards are. But I will tell you that you're 5 months out of pregnancy, and hormonally you can really be in a different place right now and out of balance. And this is a time when you could be vulnerable to postpartum, and it doesn't always come with just this terrible depression. there are just a lot of differences and a lot of confusions and a lot of questions. And the best piece of advice that I could give you at this point is to not start questioning what you've believed since you were before 13, but to just calm down and relax and kind of let this play out and see, where it goes and what you think. Now, Denise Penn is with us today as well. She's a clinical social worker, and she's on the board of directors for the American Institute of Bisexuality. She was referred to us by GLAAD, the Gay and Lesbian Alliance Against Defamation, and I've asked Denise to be here to kind of weigh in and talk about this a little bit, because this is something you specialize in and focus on, Denise. And so you know the facts. She knows your story and the facts. What would you add to the conversation?
Well, thank you, Phil. I think what you're saying, I agree with you completely. It's all about relaxing and just accepting who you are. And she's going through a lot. Being a mother is such a big change in your life. But we found at the American Institute of Bisexuality that there isn't a lot of research about women's sexuality. We actually sponsor some now, and there is some recent work that is coming out, Dr. Lisa Diamond, that shows that women tend to come out later in life and fluctuate. And actually, a lot of the research shows that some people, the myth is that bisexuality is some phase people go through while they're getting comfortable with their homosexuality. But the reality is that a lot of people come out as gay, and then later on they question that, and they find other attractions to the opposite sex. And if you just relax and let it happen, and deal with it, that's probably really good advice. Also, our founder, Dr. Fritz Klein, has studied sexuality and developed the Klein Sexual Orientation Grid, which takes a look at sexual orientation in more than just a flat way. Because everybody knows here that when you love somebody, it's not all just sexual. It's in your head, it's in your heart, it's in your spirit. So what Dr. Klein did is look at the emotional content. Maybe you're attracted to a man emotionally, but you're still very sexually attracted to women. And it's important to look at those issues.
So I think what Denise and I are saying to you is that, if you will, just relax and really just focus on your baby and enjoy that right now, and let your body mentally, emotionally, spiritually, physically, every way kind of get back into balance. And then I would also not want you to make the wrong assumption that this baby can't have a wonderful, fulfilling, nurturing life with a single mother, right, or with two mothers. But at this point, you're a single mother, and it's hard for single mothers. There's no question about that. But I can tell you, I've seen so many marriages that stay together for the kids, that the kids would be a whole lot better off. I've said before, I've had so many kids say to me they'd rather be from a broken home than live in a broken home. And, to make the assumption that you want the best for the child is exactly the right thinking. But what is best, and right now what we know is that everybody around that child loves the child, nurtures the child, is peaceful with the child, and is focused on the child. It can't get much better than that. If you meet a guy and you enjoy it, let that develop. It may become a platonic friendship, like she has with Steve now. It could be, you just let that play out. It's okay. You don't have to be in a hurry. Right now, you just need to focus on that little baby that's about as cute as they get. Okay? All right, next we're going to talk to a mother that finds out her 16-year-old daughter is claiming to be bisexual. She says she's disgusted and believes it's just a teen fad like a pair of shoes. So, is being bisexual the new teen fad? We're going to talk about all that very candidly when we come back. We're talking about surprises in relationships and surprises in your life. And believe me, sometimes you can surprise yourself. Now, we've been talking about a book today by Jane Velez Mitchell called I Want. And she talks very candidly about lying to yourself, about addiction, about consumption, and about how she hid from herself her true sexual orientation, and then what the process was in getting honest about that. Now, Mika is joining us on the phone today. She says that she was disgusted when she found out that her 16-year-old daughter was claiming to be bisexual. Mika believes it's a fad, like a pair of shoes. So I want to talk about that. Mika, are you there?
Yes, I'm here.
Okay, listen, thanks for talking about this, and I'm glad you are, because you're having a really painful response to this, true?
Yeah, I am.
So what have you said to yourself about it? You wrote me a long, long letter about this. Tell me what you're saying to yourself about this.
Well, I'm really believing that she's confused and she's just following the crowd. She's not being true to herself, but just trying to fit in. And I have a lot of bad feelings about it. And she wasn't really talkative about it. She kind of had an attitude about it at first, like, well, it is what it is. We went to counseling. The counselor talked to her for 10 minutes and said, oh, I think your daughter's a bisexual. And I just have a problem with that. She doesn't know my daughter. She doesn't know anything about her. And I don't know if you can really say that somebody is that in 10 minutes of speaking to them. She's smart enough to know what to say to the counselor because she knew that where we were going and what we were going for. So my pain just comes behind all the baggage that she has to carry. And I mean, even us saying that we would do this show, she doesn't want to do it. She doesn't want any part of it. She's like, oh, I don't have a problem now. Well, what is the real problem? And that's what I need answers for.
What I'm really concerned about is that let's assume that it is true.
Right. Mm-hmm.
You're pushing her away. You're relating to her in disgust. You're telling her that you want to pull away from her and be apart from her is not a good place to be. I mean, you recognize that, right?
No, I totally recognize that. That's why I wanted to go to counseling, but that didn't help.
Okay, well, no, it may not have helped by your definition of what you call help, which is to tell her that this isn't true. And again, I'm not saying it is or it isn't because I don't know, but here's what I do know, is that kids that are gay tend to have a 4 times higher rate of suicide than the general population.
Right.
Kids,
I recognize and understand that.
Okay, kids that are gay and alienated, rejected by their family, have a 9 times higher rate of suicide than the general population.
Right.
You add to that a friend who has already modeled that behavior of making an attempted suicide, and I take that very, very seriously and would say rather than focusing on what you want the truth to be, you need to try to find out what the truth is and then really focus on educating yourself about it in the interim. So think about that while we take a break, and when we come back, I'm going to talk more about this. I'm going to ask Denise and Jane to weigh in, and we'll talk more with Mika here in just a second. We've been talking about what to do when you've been blindsided in a relationship. And sometimes it can be in a romantic adult relationship, a parent-child relationship. Jane Velez Mitchell is here. She's a host of Issues with Jane on Headline News. She came out to the public in 2007 as a gay woman at the age of 50. Now, Barbara has known she was gay since she was 13 and now questions whether she really is because she's starting to have some confusing feelings for men after having a baby. Mika has now joined the conversation by phone. She doesn't know how to handle her 16-year-old daughter who claims to be bisexual. One of the first things I always hear parents talk about when they get this kind of message from their child is they feel guilty. Like, what have I done wrong? I didn't socialize my child right. I didn't feminize my daughter or masculinize my son. And so I've failed as a parent. And let me tell you, there's not one study I've ever seen anywhere that suggests that this myth of a dominant mother and a weak father creates a gay boy. I've never, and all of those things that you hear talked about, there's just no basis for that. And so you having a guilt reaction would be the last thing I'd want you to do. What I would want you to do is say, okay, I'm going to educate myself about this so I can have an intelligent discussion, but at no time do you want to give your daughter the message that she's not okay with you.
Right, and that's what I'm trying to work on.
Denise is a clinical social worker that's also a board of directors of the American Institute of Bisexuality. She works with GLAAD and has been giving us some insights on these issues. Help me out here. How am I doing?
You're doing great, Phil. I mean, absolutely. Keeping the lines of communication open with your daughter and being willing to go to therapy with her and calling in, those are wonderful things. And I think, you know, I really want to validate you for pursuing that.
Thank you.
But, you know, part of the problem is, let me ask you something. If she were a lesbian, would that be more okay?
I don't know, maybe. I don't know. I mean, you know, like even in the letter, I mean, I work with people who are lesbians and gay, and I get along fine with them. They come over, they can spend the night. I don't believe that I have a problem like that. I think my problem is more with her really knowing who she is, and I really feel like she doesn't.
Jane, that's what kept you from coming out, this kind of judgment and fears, what kept you from coming out, right?
This is a perfect example of why people don't come out. I have compassion for this mom, but what I'm hearing, and I hate to be rude, is homophobia. Anytime I hear somebody say that a lot of my best friends are whatever, I say,
I didn't say that my best friends are.
Okay, a lot of my friends are.
I know people who are.
Sure.
And I don't have a phobia, and I'll openly admit that. It's not that. This is my child.
Let me chime back in here and say one other thing. Your daughter is 16.
Right.
Okay. I don't think she should be sexually active with anybody.
I don't either. I don't either.
We kind of have to back this way up and say, you know, let's just calm down here. But listen, the main thing I'm trying to say to you now is that you don't, the fact that she's like with a girl one week, a boy the next week, both the next week, that would be upsetting to me as a parent, whether they were all boys or all girls, gay, straight, or whatever, just because she's 16. So we certainly want to calm that down. What I don't want is, you said that you have kicked her out of the house, that you've responded with disgust and felt like vomiting when you hear this. I understand the anxiety of being a parent, but at no time do you want to cut off the lines of communication here. If this is just experimentation, if this is just kind of conforming to what she thinks the cool kids are doing right now, that will pass. If it is not, it will not pass. And I'm going to, when we're done here, I'm going to give you some really important information to try to educate yourself with, to eliminate some of the myths that I think a lot of people embrace, so you can at least go into this with an informed base of understanding.
Right.
And so I'm going to really ask that we do that, okay?
That'd be great.
All right. Thank you so much. We'll be right back. I want to thank all of my guests today. We're talking about some really serious things here, and I know, and I hope we've had an intelligent discussion that's been informative for you. You don't want to miss CBS new drama, The Good Wife, which airs Tuesdays at 10 p.m. on CBS. And be sure to pick up Jane Velez Mitchell's new book, I Want, which is in stores. Jane, let me ask you, did you ever worry that this would affect your career? The coming out part affect your ratings, your career, your network affiliations?
I did, and all my fears were essentially for naught. The sky didn't fall down. Nobody hated me. I didn't get any hate mail. My workplace has been completely supportive. And so I say a lot of the fear of coming out is self-generated.
Yeah, my dad used to say, you wouldn't worry so much about what people thought of you if you knew how seldom they did. And, you know, we feel like we got a big target on us, but that's not always the case. By the way, everybody in the audience is getting a copy of the book. All right? Also, a special thanks to Denise Penn. Denise, thank you. And we're going to have links up on our website to get you to all kinds of resources to give you information you need about these issues for you or for your teen. And if your teen is struggling with sexuality, please call the Trevor Helpline, 866-4U-TREVOR. And you can call at any time. It is, in my knowledge, it's the only 24/7 information and helpline out there on these issues. And for more information on Jane's book or the issues we covered today, go to drphil.com. Thanks for being here. So long. Thank you so much. Bye-bye. See you all.